Hello, good morning, welcome back. Today we're doing something new, something that has nothing to do with what is on the dress forms behind me because I love procrastinating. I suppose you could also say that this has been procrastinating because I don't need this until the end of August. However, we are now 35 days away from San Diego Comic-Con. I don't have a single, well, that's a lie. I have one look ready and it's just because it is one that I made 3 years ago. 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Anyways, yeah, my Thursday look is question mark. But today we're gonna focus on Friday, yeah? So I think it's gonna be Friday. I'm like 90% sure this is what we're wearing Friday, and that is Gender Bent, A Knight of Seven Kingdoms. Because if you didn't know, I love Game of Thrones. I mean, how are you here and you don't know that? Anyways, I will be doing a female Aerion Targaryen. This is the look I'm going for. It is the look of when Aerion first arrives at the tourney. I have been slowly working on parts of it for a while, but now I gotta lock in because like just over a month is a little stressful, especially since I'm probably gonna not be working on a lot over the 4th of July, which is right before, and I have other big project that is in the works that's not even this, it's not even Elizabeth. I have been working on Elizabeth nonstop, but that doesn't mean I don't have other big projects in the works. So for now, we're gonna focus, we're gonna lock in, we're gonna get this done real quick, and we're gonna start with the cloak. Because the cloak seems easy, it seems like a nice starting point. I just drafted a cloak for Freerin, so like we could do that again, super easy. And also I found the fabric texture. All the fabric was like hand textured and hand done and whatever. I found them on Instagram, they came across my feed, so I do have very good photos of what the texture for the cloak is supposed to look like. I also got a whole bin of velvet for free like 2 years ago, and it's just been sitting in my fabric stash doing nothing. And if you know, part of my goal this year is to use as much of my fabric stash as I can for projects that I'm working on instead of buying fabric. It's going really well, but I do have just a butt ton of velvet, and I also have some left over from my Rhaenyra costume, my season 1 Rhaenyra costume that I made 3 years ago. That's the one I was referring to earlier. Anyways, that is offhand. I just have a lot of black velvet, so let's get through some of it. Let's get through my stash and let's just like party. I do need to find a red fabric for the lining. I was debating even fully lining it. But I feel like the inside of the velvet is gonna be like, I have some right here. I feel like it's just gonna be like rough on my, actually, you know what, that's not bad. Maybe, there's just lots of vents that maybe I'll just make some bias binding depending on what fabric I can find. I don't want it to be too heavy because that was a mistake we made last year. Our costumes were too hot, and it is hot at San Diego. You definitely wanna wear your like cooler, more for vibes costumes is what we found out. It's not about how good it looks, it's about the vibe. And the vibe is going to be party, okay? Okay, let's lock in. Let me go find some fabrics, see what we got. Yeah, okay. This is just a little piece of the velvet because I have so much of it. But the fun part is that I got a bunch of this exact same velvet for free, and it is the exact same one that I had in my stash from Rhaenyra. But I do like this velvet, and I do know how to work with this velvet, and I like working with this. I mean, as much as anyone likes to work with velvet, but it is the exact same velvet, funnily enough. So yeah, we're just gonna cut straight into this bad boy. I'm very excited about that. I think it is like a skinnier, it's not like a 60-inch velvet, at least the one that I got for free isn't, but there's a lot of it. It's a lot. And it's rolled up kind of awkwardly, so I don't know how much, but I think I should be able to get all of the cloak out of that, even though it's skinny. It is a guessing game though, because I did only draft the top, like the waist section of the cloak, because I just draw the rest of it with a tape measure. Like, why waste the paper? For the lining, I do have a bunch of really nice reds. I have this red that is a bridal satin that I love to use this stuff. I use it all the time. I don't want to use this if I don't have to. I would love to use this for something else. So I have these 2 red knits, and they are obviously vastly different colors. But I think this one for sure I want to use. I just don't have a ton of it. I think I could get like a front panel and like the yolks, out of this, so anything where you're like potentially really gonna see it. And I could potentially use that for like a bias binding or just like a binding. It's a knit, so that would be kind of awkward because there's lots of vents everywhere in it. But I'm also thinking I could see how much of this I have, and if I could get the side pieces out of this, I can definitely at least get like the center front and the center back out of this. I think I'm just gonna cut out the center front pieces and the yoke pieces, and then I will just do like let's do 2-inch bindings strips for the side vents, and I think I'm gonna put a vent on the center back just for like ease of movement and walk around. It's a horse in this outfit, so yeah, we're gonna just go with that and see how that goes and then go from there. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna start cutting, I'm gonna start sewing. I also have to do a lot of texturing for this, obviously. Obviously we gotta do texturing, so we will see how that goes as well. Sick.
Welcome back to another chaos voiceover. The first thing you're going to do for a cloak pattern is actually draw a 90-degree angle on the corner of your paper, because then you can properly line everything up. I didn't. Like always, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but you want to line up your shoulder and armhole corners on a 45-degree angle coming off of a perfect 90-degree angle. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, and then you want an inch between those, so you can see me kind of struggling to do that here. It shouldn't have been that hard. But yeah, basically line those up, preferably on a 90-degree angle. But you know how we do it, 1 inch apart. Also, that 45-degree angle from the exact corner is going to be your side seam, basically, so it's really important that it's there and that it's straight and proper. You see me now adding in that 90-degree angle there, and here comes the 45-degree angle, which I actually kind of managed to do it. Like, it might be slightly off, but we did it. Your really important tracing of your patterns here are your neck hole, your shoulder seams, and your waist seams. Those are the ones that you're going to mostly use. But I went 3 inches down off of the shoulder seam and then drew just a diagonal angle to get your shoulder seams. Now I'm taking the tape measure and I am finding the waist measurement from the side seam for some reason, and then I'm just going to do a little circle around it. Now this pattern actually has a like rolled extended neck, so this is my first time ever doing that. And you mark a 1/4 inch in from the neck hole on the shoulder and then 2 inches down, and I traced that rather than cutting it out to like get this new neckline. So then I just taped it on, I measured 2 inches up and then laid that down and then just went an inch from that new line basically. And you can't do this on the fold, I don't think, if you want to do it properly, because it does have that weird angle. For the back, I am basically just finding the perfect parallel with the center back for that shoulder neck hole point. And then I am measuring up an inch towards the shoulder armhole, out 1/2 inch, and then lining that up and creating a new angle. And now I'm just gonna create that new neckline, baby. I just went up an inch exactly on all of this because that is what my old textbook told me to do. Sorry, that wasn't very like on point. I was kind of yapping a lot in between. I now just lined this up with my cloak base and I traced it on with the tracing wheel. If I were using proper pattern paper that is slightly see-through, this would be much easier, but this is the paper that I'm using and it works for me. I just folded it at the center front, lined up the neck hole, pinned it down, and then traced it. I was trying to keep this base cloak map kind of basic, but I did end up just tracing all of the lines for Aerion's cloak onto it. I figure I can just trace whatever patterns I want into this at any point, and it'll be fine. For the yoke, I started out by just tracing the top section of the pattern. I wasn't sure exactly how far down I wanted it, so I just traced the base of it. And now I'm just taking the center front in slightly at an angle because his neckline is a little angled. And then I'm just gonna start marking. I also marked the armhole and shoulder point so that I could kind of go off of that because that's where it looks like the yoke connects on his. And I'm just kind of drawing on lines until I'm happy with it. I honestly wish that I had gone slightly further down. I would have definitely adjusted it if I'd done a sample. But because this is a very simple pattern and costume, I didn't do a sample, so, you know. There are some slight pleats down the center front and the center back of this cloak, I think. So I just laid a new piece of paper on top, and I am just tracing 2 different pleats and folding them. It's kind of my favorite way to do pleats, is to just fold the pleats into the paper rather than doing like math, because that seems like a lot. Like if you just fold it and you know exactly where it is, then you can just like trace and cut exactly how it's gonna look for the end result. I did this one, each section is 5/8, and then I moved half an inch away from it for the second one, and I did the second one at 3/8. I don't know why, that's just what felt right when I was doing it. That was just the measurements that came into my head when I started folding, so that's what we did. And then I basically just laid that down and pinned it down, pulled my yoke up, and then traced the yoke, and then drew on my other lines, and then traced those onto the base pattern so that they would all be in the same place. And yeah, that's basically how I did this entire thing. I also decided to do the princess seams for this pattern just because I knew it was going to be easier to assemble with that awkward yoke. Like if I'd just done a yoke overlay and just cut out a regular pattern for the rest of it, which I am now realizing I could have done, and that probably would have saved me a lot of time, but I didn't do that, so I knew assembly was gonna suck. So I decided to do these princess seams so I wouldn't have to sew that really awkward corner, and I'm really happy that I did because the assembly was really easy. To draft the back yoke, I took the existing piece and I just walked it, which is where you just put these seams together and you just kind of move your finger down it and line them up until you know exactly where they're going to meet. And then I folded the front piece over on the seam, and I traced exactly where it was going to meet, and then I drew the pattern piece on while they were kind of laid next to each other so that I would know if they were semi-even, what the vibe was going to be. I also measured how long the center front of the yoke was, and I took that exact measurement to the center back so that they would be even there as well, even though I did take the center front in or out. Whatever. Now to get the length, because I basically only drafted the patterns to the waist, I just take a measurement and I just kind of drag it along to the length that I know I need to add. I added 30 inches from the waist because that takes it to about mid-calf on me. And I just draw all the lines with chalk. It's so easy.
Okay, this was my test piece. This is the back. I hope you can see the texture. Let me turn on the other light. So this was a test piece and a first pass. I did a few different techniques here. The one that I started with that I was like, yeah, no, there's no way that that like works and looks good. That's the one that actually looks the best. So let me show you what I did, because this is actually like a really good starting point. I think we just need to kind of thicken it up a little bit. So let's just, step one.
The pattern for this is kind of like lightning bolty to me, so that's what I was going for. I was also really trying to draw exactly on the wrinkles because it gave me a really nice natural pattern to follow. I'm just drawing the lines with the glue, and then I'm going to go back in with a flat top paintbrush and just kind of dipple that into the velvet, I guess you could say. I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't bead up like it's doing. I could have used a different glue and it wouldn't have done this, but this is the glue that I have the most of, and I don't know what else to do with it, so we're doing this with it. I would occasionally wet the brush while I was doing this. I also used that black paint that you see to go back over and blend out more of the areas that needed blending, or to kind of bulk up some of the areas so that they aren't all really skinny little lines of glue. I don't know what else to say. I did go in with either a large flat or this kind of rough brush, and I did just kind of drag the glue and paint down the fabric to just give it a little bit more speckling and texture. I didn't do this a lot for them, but I did kind of just dab on little spots of black to give just a tiny bit more texture. I did sew some of it off camera. I just started sewing and I didn't realize my camera was dead. Yeah. So I just connected the yokes at the shoulder seams. I also added some interfacing to the yokes because that is slightly different texture. So I did flatten out that velvet and I think it earned that texture. But I just basted down the pleats and then I pinned very meticulously because these curves are no joke, and I just lined up the front and the back pieces with the yoke at the edges, and I have clipped seam allowance so it should all line up perfectly and tell me exactly where it needs to go. And then I did just put all of the seam allowance towards the yoke and top stitch it down so I wouldn't have to iron any of this again, because you can't really iron velvet unless you want to press it down for the texture like I did on the yokes. The back is another beast in and of itself because there is no center back seam on the yoke, so I did have to get this point pretty exact. I did just draw on the inside of both pieces where exactly that V was going to match up, and then I put pins where a part of the pin was sticking out right where that V was gonna meet so that I could line that up exactly, and then I pinned and sewed one side at a time. I was really careful with this so that I could get that nice sharp V, and then I clipped the seam allowance and sewed the seam allowance to the yoke just as I did on the front. The first side panel I sewed the side seams together, and this is where we have one of the vents for better movement. I wish I had done the binding on the vent first, and that is how I did my second piece, but on this one I did sew the side seams together first, and then I went in with some of this red fabric that I had cut out to be lining pieces, and I just cut 1-inch strips. I was going to do 2, but that felt like overkill since I didn't think I was really going to finish this. I just lined those up, sewed them down at 1/4 inch, and then I did go back in and top stitch them so that the seam allowance was attached to the bias strip. I used a stretch fabric. That was a total mistake. It was moving all over the place. This sucked. It does not look good, but I got it there in the end. And then I did just top stitch all the way up that seam so that it is all laying completely flat. And then to attach the side pieces to the main body of the cloak, I also sewed this one side at a time. I would start at the shoulder seam and then sew down because of the way that it transfers from the interfaced yoke into the rest of the velvet. I was getting little bubbles, so I'm happy I did this because it started out completely uneven when I pinned all the way down the seam. It was like 2 inches uneven, and by the time I got to the bottom, it was perfectly even. I would recommend doing, if you do this, to do it like that and do it 1/2 at a time. It is a little bit more work, but it was worth it.
What's that saying? Make it exist and then make it good. That's kind of what we're going for today. And it's mostly just because my back hurts so bad and I have been bent over tables for ages. But other than maybe like 3 seams, this is done. I keep forgetting that it's that big neck. Okay, let me just pin this. Oh, I pinned it to my skirt. Oh, I left some pins on the inside too, and there's so many strings that need trimmed. I was trying so hard to not be upset that it's not perfect and that it's not like contest worthy, because I don't need it for a contest. So that's why I ended up only lining the front little bit, and then the sides just have this completely unfinished, you know, like little bias binding. Hey, at least I did a bias binding. I fully could have just folded it under or left it as it is. But, okay, wait, let me put my hair up so that you can see the full effect. This is also like the worst shirt to be doing this in. So obviously, you know, when we make it better, it'll have a little chain clasp here. And then, are you feeling the vibes? I honestly was unsure if it was supposed to have like armholes over here, but I don't think so. It's like a traveling cloak, so I figure, you know, we'll do this and then we'll have our cute little shirt, whatever the bottoms are gonna be. Ta-da! And honestly, if I want to, I can just go like this. like I'm gonna be doing that a lot, and it'll also feel like it does actually sit really well because of the high neck on it. But I feel like once it has the chain on it right here and it like holds, it's just gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the perfect vampire cape too. That's so funny. But yes, we did it. We made it, and later we will make it better. But we are on a time constraint. And also, I do have a sneak peek though of what's to come next for this. Let me go grab it. My favorite part of his look in this is just the full-on scale mail, round scale mail that is just on skin, just straight up mail over no shirt underneath. So we're gonna be doing some illusion work. For now, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed. It's so good to be back in a Game of Thrones mood. And this is also gonna come out in perfect timing because House of Dragon on Sunday? Yes, welcome back to Game of Thrones, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.